Okay, so this right here is going to be a video to go ahead and show you guys how to specifically work with uh, inputting a graph into your lab and how to manipulate the data that's in this heating and cooling curve lab. So in order to manipulate the data, what you're going to do here is you're going to go ahead and read, and this part here, you're going to go ahead and basically just tell the story. You're going to tell what story, what did you see Mr. Bradley do in the lab? How did Mr. Bradley measure everything? How did we know when it was melted all the way? And you're going to show, Mr. Bradley taking the test tube in and out of the container and giving kind of like the step-by-step play-by-play. Okay. This right here is supposed to go ahead and represent for you the data. So if you had, this is the data for as if you had done it yourself. Okay. And we're going to use this data in just a second to explain a couple of phenomena. Okay. This right here is a second sheet that I went ahead and set up for everybody. And this is just a sheet that we can go ahead and use to help us analyze the data. Okay. So in order for us to analyze the data, we're first going to need to take the data. So I'm going to go ahead and take my cursor. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it down and select all the data. Then I'm going to go ahead and right click, and I'm going to click copy. Then I'll go back over to the heating and cooling curve data table, and I'm going to go ahead and right click, and I'm going to paste. Now when I do that, it's going to bring all the data over so that I can analyze it. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click, and then we're going to go ahead and shift click for the cooling curve. Okay. So we've selected all these. So we're going to click on one corner, move down to the other, and then shift click. And then without clicking anything, we're going to go ahead and head to this button, and we're going to hit the button that says Insert Chart. Okay, and it's going to insert the chart, and as you can see, it has inserted this chart, and it has given us a nice little line chart. Now, if it gives you something else, so if it gives you something like this, you want to go ahead and click this button here and select the line chart option. Okay. Once it gives us this line chart, we can go ahead and select this line chart. We can copy the chart, and then we can go to our original lab table. And it says right here that we want to use the data that shows our heating and cooling curve. So this first chart is our cooling curve. And since it's a cooling curve and we're going to put in the chart, we're going to go ahead and bold that, and we'll even make it a size bigger. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and hit paste. And we'll hit link to spreadsheet just in case somebody wants to see it. Okay. And so now we've posted in our cooling curve. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do our other curve. So we're going to come back here. We're going to go ahead and delete this chart for right now. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same process again, where we're going to select one box in the top left-hand corner, move down to the bottom right-hand corner, hit shift and click. We're going to move all the way over here to insert chart. And we're going to grab this one right here. Okay. And again, make sure that it has the line chart and that everything's set up for you. We're going to go ahead and copy chart. We're going to type in heating curve. here, we'll select this again, we'll hit bold, and we'll make it bigger because we want to make sure everyone knows that it's the heating curve. Now remember, cooling curve should go down, heating curve should go up. Then we'll hit Control V, link to spreadsheet, and it'll show up there. Unfortunately, it showed up on another page, but if it shows up on another page, just make sure that your title ends up being on the same page. Okay. So then, it's specifically asking us now, what was our melting point for stearic acid? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take a look at our chart. And our chart here is a diagonal line right here. So that's indicating that, it's a solid that's heating. And then it stays flat for a little while. Okay? And this flat part is where we're going to go ahead and say that the melting point is, because this is where it's melting. And this melting point is right under this 60-degree line. So we can go ahead and state that it's 59 degrees. And all of our measurements are in Celsius. Then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and look for the freezing point. And the freezing point, it looks like it does the same thing. It goes along for a while and then it suddenly stops right here at right under 60. So that's also going to be at 59 degrees. Okay. This right here is going to be talking about any errors that you might have seen. So if you saw in the video or if you had any mistakes in the lab, this is really where I want you to put any mistakes that you may have had in the lab. Okay. And I want you to go ahead and analyze those. So what mistakes would you have in the lab? Or if you had watched the video, you can make any mistakes of things that you think that Mr. Bradley could have done better. So for instance, what was the temperature outside of my room? Could I have gotten the temperature down lower? Okay, those were all sorts of things that you could go ahead and ask and say, okay, why didn't Mr. Bradley do that? If it did that, maybe we'd have better data. Maybe Mr. Bradley should have done this experiment a couple of times to verify. You could put anything that you think that would make this experiment better. And that's what we're looking for right there. Next, we have this long statement. And what it says is that pure substances have a melting point at a specific temperature. Okay, so look, this one, it has a melting point directly at 59 degrees. It's pretty obvious that it's right at 59 degrees. Whereas mixtures of similar chemicals will have a range of temperatures for their melting point. So this is saying that if it's a mixture, it should have a spread out melting point. And what it's wanting to do is it wants us to go ahead and take a look at a new set of data and analyze to see if it's a mixture or if it's a pure substance. Okay? So we'll go ahead and do the same thing where we highlight a group of our data, Control C, or go ahead and right click and copy. Go into the thing right here, Control V, and we'll make a chart so that we can compare it. Okay, and look here, we see that the melting point is actually, some of it's here, underneath 50, underneath 60, and some of it's above 60. So we would go ahead and say that it has a melting point not at one temperature, and we could say safely that this is a mixture.